Okay, so, all right. Our last chapter for this, and then I hope that chapter 12, at least you have the idea what is the rules and regulations that we have. Okay. Right, so now we're coming to the end of our lecture. So this is our last chapter, chapter 13. Okay, environmental impact assessment. Okay, EIA. And I'm sure some of you, especially students from BTM courses, who actually knows about social impact assessment SIA. Is actually almost similar. It's just that the difference is SIA is having inside the EIA. Okay, EIA is the biggest one. Social impact assessment is inside. It's part of the EIA. All right. Yeah. So also I'm not going to tell you like very detailed one, but then I just would like to let you having an intro to know that what is EIA, and then how's the EIA help us to guide our developments, especially as a construction student. You need to know developments, and also the pollution is actually it can't go along. So when you're doing some developments, definitely there will be some pollutions. So how are we going to control this? So through EIA is actually some things that help us before the pollutions create. We can identify it before. Okay, so it's a more to a prevention method, right? Okay, so the course learning outcomes still the same. It's only CLO1, which is define the concept and elements in the environment. Right. So the introductions. As a pollution control is essential, a curative process. So EIA is essentially a preventive process. Okay. So it seeks to avoid the costly mistake in the project planning and development, mistake which can be costly either because of environmental losses that result or costly because of the modification. Okay. EIA is the pollution control and resources planning are together a total approach to the environmental management. Right? Okay. So the procedure and the guidelines for the EIA in Malaysia has been developed in line with the government's policy statements, which contained in the chapter 9 on the developments and environments of the third Malaysia Plan since 1976. So you guys, all of you haven't born during that time, even myself. Right? So in 1985, EQA was amended and Section 34A was inserted, which required any persons intending to carry out any prescribed activity to submit a report on the impact on the environment to the Director General DG, okay, so of the Department of Environment for the approval. Section 34A of EQA, the Ministry, after the consultations with the councils, may be orders prescribed by any activity which may have significant environmental impact as the prescribed activity. Or any persons that intending to carry out any prescribed activity shall appoint a qualified person to conduct an environmental impact assessment and submit the reports to the DG. So the DG shall maintain a list of the qualified persons who may carry out the environmental impact assessment and also submit the report. Okay, so the auditor is not everybody can be. It need to have certain qualifications and also experience. So the qualified person who submit the report shall be responsible for the environmental impact assessment and also the recommendations, and it ensures that the report and the recommendations do not contain any false or misleading information, and then take a professional indemnity insurance for any liability arising from the EIA. Okay. And then the report also shall be in accordance with the guideline as the DG may be prescribed, or an assessment of the impact such as activity will have or likely to have on the environment. The proposed measure that should be undertaken to prevent, reduce, and control the impact. So, and then if the When the DG checking on the reports and then making some inquiries or some opinions to the requirements of the sections 2C, then the measures need to be undertaken for the preventions to reduce or control the impact on the environment. Then only he can approve the report. Okay. It means that when you're having a project and then it's fall under the prescribed activities, so you need to hire somebody to do the EIA. So when you would like to do the EIA, it needs to be someone that licensed or been approved by the DOE. So then you can check from the DOE. Okay. So when you're already doing that, and then they've been help you to submit the reports for the approvals, so the DGs will check through the approvals, the reports. If the reports found out that there is some risk that will create some pollutions, so what is your recommendation? If you didn't provide any solutions, the DGs will ask you to give the solution. If you already provide the solution, which means the pollution with the solution is come in a good terms, then only the DGs can approve your request, right? Okay. So if the DG on examining the report after making such inquiry that he considers necessary, so the report is not accordance with the development plans, or the report does not satisfy the requirement under 2C, okay, then he shall not approve the report. Okay, so when it comes to the introductions of the EIA, is that it says that the DGs may require the persons to submit any reports or any other reports to him in addition to the report that require under the sections be submitted under the sections 34A2. Okay, any person intending to carry out a prescribed activity shall not carry out activity until the report required under the section is submitted to the DGs, okay, and approved. If the DGs approve the report, the persons carrying out the prescribed activities shall provide sufficient proof that the conditions attached to the report. All right. Okay. So what are the rules of the DOE to ensure the environmental qualities? Because as all of you know, DOE is the persons that taking care on the rules and regulations and also the enforcement. So what are their roles or what is the responsibilities from them? So first they need to administer and enforce the Environmental Quality Act. And then they need to prevent and control the pollution. And then also they need to look after the laws that relates to the quality of the environment. And then to organize the programs to preserve and conserve the environment through education and others. Okay. So in the sections 34AA of the EQA, the prohibitions order for the prescribed activities. So this is some things that come out from the teachers. Teacher needs to provide a provision orders, either to stop that somebody's if they're doing some activities that without the permission, okay, without the EIA approval. So the DGs need to issue a provisions order. So why how this been issued is actually when the prescribed activity without the approval, or even they have the approval, but then during the monitoring, they found out that there is some things that happens and it's not suitable or it didn't follow the rule, then the DGs have the right to issue the prohibitions orders, which in the opinions of the DGs are being carried out in a manner that like cause of the environmental damage. The prohibitions order to stop the works or the stop works orders may be issued for the purpose to prevent the prescribed activity from continuing. Okay. Also, any person who contravenes these sanctions shall be guilty and offense. Okay. So you will need to pay a fine, or even sometimes you might be jailed. Okay, so what is the objective of the EIA? The aims of the EIA is actually to assess the overall impact on the environment of the development projects proposed by the public and private sector. Okay, the objective is to examine and select the best from the project options available, to identify and incorporate into the project plan of appropriate environment and mitigate the measures, to predict the residual environmental impact, to determine the significance of the residual environmental impact, and then to identify the environmental costs and benefits of the project to the community. So these are the objectives of the EIA. Okay. And the EIA procedure, there are actually three steps of the EIA procedures. First is the preliminary assessment of all prescribed activity. And the second is the detailed assessment. And then the third one is actually a process of the review the EIA reports. Okay? So preliminary usually is more to a basic one, and then detail is more to a deep one. Sometimes you may submit a preliminary first, and then when the DG found that the preliminary is not enough, then he may ask you to do the detail. Okay, so a lots of time people would prefer to go directly to the details because then you don't need to do 2 times work. Okay, so the objective for each is actually for the preliminary assessment is to examine and select the best from the project options, to identify and incorporate into the project plans, and then to identify the significant residual environmental impacts. For the detailed one is to describe the significance and then to specify the mitigation measures, and then also to identify around the cost and benefits. And then the review one is actually we need to be very critical review the EIA report to evaluate the developments and environmental costs, and then also to formulate the recommendations to the project approving authority. Okay, right. So those that activities actually need the detailed assessment is actually been listed down like here. Iron, in steel, pulp and paper, cement plants. So these are activities that need the detailed assessment. But then sometimes, although that activities may really be under detailed assessment, when you submit the preliminaries, the teacher have the right to ask you to submit the detailed ones. So this is just a guidelines that if you are doing this kind of activity, you are compulsory to submit a detail. But then also it may happen some of the activity that not listed by any teacher requires you to submit the detailed one. Okay, right. So that's all for the EIA. I'm not going to go in long for the EIA because I just would like to give you the simple one. Okay, and then later on, I also will send you together with the EIA reports that actually been published on the DOE website. Okay, so when during the review periods, you are actually giving sometimes they will put it online. Okay, and then sometimes they will put it inside the advertisements to shows that there are one project that requests to do this project in your areas. And then you need to go and say that whether you are agree or not, what is your comment. But then what happens is actually if there is no people giving any objections, that means it will be get the approval. Okay, so after the EIAs, and then there is another things that relates to the environments is actually the ISO 14000. We call it as an environmental management system, which is EMS. Okay, so this is only I giving you as an extra knowledge. So that when you after this, when you start to work in the industry, at least you have the idea what is ISO 14000. Because all of you, I'm sure you know what the ISO 9000 management's quality, but then not everybody knows what the ISO 14000, right? So this is just a basic, more to extra knowledge to you, right? Okay. So what is the definitions of the environments in ISO 14000? So the definitions of the environments, it will be different with the ISO, the definitions in the EQA. So you can see I give you two types of the definitions. One is in the ISO 14000 definitions 3.5, it said that the environment is the surrounding which any organizations operate, include air, water, land, natural resources, flora, fauna, humans, and their interrelations. But then when it comes to the EQA definition, it said that it's a physical factor of the surrounding of human beings, including land, water, atmosphere, climate, sound, order, taste, and the biological factors of animal and plants, and the social factors of the SN state. Right? Okay. So this is the definitions. Okay. So from when we say about surrounding, what this means by the surrounding, it is actually from an organizations to the global system, right? And then the organizations that we mean is actually companies, authority, or public and private. Okay. And next we have this EMS in the interactions. So when we say about EMS interactions, it's actually some things that relates to the OSHAs and that it means relates to a lots of things. Because why? You can see here is having the OSHA, chemicals, and the environments, financial. So if you look into here, it's actually it's related to everything's in our lectures here. So you can see is when we say about environments, it will relate to the occupations because where you work, okay, it's reminded in terms of chemicals, productions, or social or financials, okay. So this is why when we say about environmental management system, it needs to be an integrated one, okay. So it will correlate with all others, everything, right? Okay, so this is the elements that we have, and then what is the is more to reset what is ISO 14000, okay? So you need to know that it's actually an international standard which provide guideline on implementations of the EMS. And then it is recognized by the worldwide, and then it aims to achieving the sustainable development, and then also it can be applicable to any organization just like the ISO 9000. Okay. So, environmental management system (EMS) is a tool for managing the impact of the environment of the organization's activity towards the environment. So, EMS monitors the environmental performance that similar roles to the financial management to monitor the incomes. Okay, so an EMS is integrate the environmental management into the company daily operations, long-term planning, and also other quality management system. Okay, so the concept of the ISO 14000 is actually there are 10 concepts that you need to know. First, you need to know on the environmental law and regulations. And then second, you need to identify the specific requirements and then also identify the expect and the impact. And then you need to prescribe clearly the roles and responsible of the specific personnel. Afterwards, you need to establish the procedure and then you train it, check, and then keep the legal information up to date. Establish the most practical and means. Evaluate the legal compliance critically. Consult the expert or the DOE. Then, benefits of the EMS is actually to minimize it, and then also you need to minimize the environmental liability, and then also you maximize the efficiency use of the resources, and then you need to reduce the waste, demonstrate the good corporate image, and then you build the awareness of the environmental concerns among the employees, and then you gain a better understanding of the environmental impact of the business activity. And then you increase the profit by improving the environmental performance through more efficient operations. Finally, is the compliance with the foreign government regulations. Okay, first we need also, when we see about hills, the most simple things that the first thing that come into us is actually we need to reuse some of the waste, okay, such like the paper waste, and then think before you print. This is all the things that the benefits coming from the EMS, and also it will help you to reduce some of the operation costs from your company. Okay. And then this is the models that we have for the ISO 14000 models. So it has the 6 components here. We have the management review and environmental policy, and then we have our planning, checking, implementation, and operations. Okay. And then we have the PDCA module. So plan, do, check, adjust. Okay. Okay, so first you need to planning. What you want to do for your EMS, so you need to do the planning. And then second, you need to check, is it your planning? You need to do it. After you plan, you need to do it so you can do. After you do, then only you will see how is your planning is going well. So then you will come to the checking. So checking, you will monitor the performance. Is it works or not? When we found out there is some problems, then we will try to adjust it. Okay. So this is what we call as a PDCA model. Okay. Right. So the environmental policies that need to be developed is need to be compliant with all relevant environmental requirements. And then also it needs to prevent the pollutions to the environment, save the energies, reduce and recycle the waste materials, abolish or reduce the hazardous substance to the environment, satisfy the customer green procurement system, and then strive together toward the continual improvement. Okay, so these are the components that we have in the EMS system. And then this is the rules and regulations that we have. It's also similar with the EQA because it still need to refer back to the EQA. Okay, so the conclusion is you will be more sensitive to the surrounding the environment, and then you will understand the legal requirement more. You will know your status of the compliance battles, and then you will be better rapport with the authority, and then become more benefits when you have it. This more benefits will comes to you if you've been sincerely embarked and believe on it. All right. Okay. So that's all for all our lectures. Okay. So this is the end of this semester classes and also the end for our classes. And then so I just would like you to always remember that we did not inherit this earth from our forefathers, but means we have only borrowed it from our children. Right? So that's all for today's classes and also the ends for our semester. And then before I end these classes, I would like to apologize if there's anything mistake or wrongs or communications that I've been done. Please accept my apologize on that. And then thank you, and I hope you enjoy this class. Okay, all right. So thank you all of you, and then I will see you again after this, maybe in futures. And then if you have any questions, you are free to ask me any channels. Even after this, when you've been working, you are free to ask me. All right. Okay, that's all. Bye.